So if we play this, and it has this big jump, and I think that's mainly because of how many bounces we have for such a short amount of time. So if we decrease that a little bit, it should. Okay. That's why. So the reason why it was basically still like that is because we go back to the timeline, we can see that our keyframe is right here, kind of in the middle of the available frames for this object or this layer. So the easing, it creates the easing for the whole timeline. So to smooth that out, basically you'd want to either remove frames. So I can click right here and just hit remove frames. They changed things a little bit with CS4. In the past, you would just click on the frame and remove frame if you're using a classic tween or in the old tweening stage, but in this case, you can actually just click on the end frame and drag that. So if we only wanted a 30-second animation, that's what it would be. Now we see that when we do that, it basically scales where our keyframe was. It makes it proportional to the entire length here. So to edit that, we'll just go back to the old motion editor, and if we want to change the duration or time of it, we just click on the keyframe and you drag it either left or right. And if you want to constrain it so we don't actually move its position, we're going to hold the shift key down, continue to drag it. And now if we go back to the timeline, we can see that our keyframe is at our last frame there. Now we'll run the animation, and we can see it bounces. The first one we had was easing, so I'm going to go back to easing. You can change this at any time, so we can change it back to simple or slow, and then you can basically determine how slow it's going to ease into. Play this. Actually, let's test it. We're not seeing it ease because the end frame is way over here. So in the timeline, I'm going to make sure I'm on my last frame, and I'm just going to move this object, and then edit our motion path. And on the motion path, you can see these little dots, and those represent the individual frames. And so you can see with the easing, you can see how it's spaced the frames out further. So let's play this and see what's on. So this is going to go a lot faster, and then it's going to slow down as you get to the end here. Since basically it has to travel this distance, this wide distance within one frame, so that's going to speed it up. So if we look at how far it goes in 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it goes this distance in 5 frames in the beginning, and if you look at it here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like this. It's like, goes from like 3 inches to like a half an inch in distance. So obviously, if it's the same time, same allotment of time, then it has to go faster to make up that distance in that time. So that's why it goes faster in the beginning, and then as these get closer together, it just slows down. If we wanted the opposite of that, if we wanted to start off slow and build up speed, you would use a negative number for your simple slow. And we can see how that changed. Now these are closer together in the beginning, and then they get further apart towards the end. And again, we just play that so you can see. It starts off slow and then speeds up. It's important when you're animating certain objects is to use the easing to create more natural movement in your animation. And some of the presets offer interesting results too, so you test those out. Like if sine waves and square waves and sawtooth and stuff. So if we do that, I just changed it to sawtooth, and I have to change it up here, added sawtooth. So I'm going to change this to sawtooth wave. We can see the sawtooth wave is just more angled waves. So if we play this now, so before with the bounce, it was very kind of squishy. It had some easing to it, so it was like boing, boing. It had a very bouncy feel to it. And this has a very rigid feel to it if we play it. It's just, it just goes from one end to the other. You can see all these points are evenly spaced, so there's no emotion to the animation. It's just rigid from one end to the other. Again, you can change how many times it bounces back and forth with the teeth on the saw wave or sawtooth wave. So the higher the number, the more times it bounces back and forth. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Okay, well, I was going to try to go into buttons, but really don't have time to do that, so we'll save that for the next time. Just play around with the animation. Just play around. You can always remove it. Play around with nested symbols, because they can be very powerful. You can have an object glow or blink or rotate or do something, and then also have it move across the path or be part of your other timeline as well. So, thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Short class today.
Cool.
I covered everything. Play around on the shape painting. The shape painting is pretty powerful too.
The shape painting.
I like
The
that.
shape painting. Yeah.
Oh, shape painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that can be, especially if you're doing animations, animating shapes across or logos. You can do some cool stuff with logos.
Yeah.
That almost looked like, birds. You can
Yeah,
look
it
at
did.
birds
I
and
was thinking that
butterflies.
too.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a minute, let me wake up in here.
Yeah,
Right.
you can create some interesting effects like that too. Just animating differently.
Can
And-
you import picture? Like, could you import a butterfly?
Oh yeah.
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 Like the
Uh-huh.
logos,
Yeah,
like
it-
the logos.
Birds and butterflies.
It's like the
Um,
symbols
yeah.
on an Illustrator, they've got the butterfly.
Flash.
Oh.
You can draw objects in Flash, but it really isn't meant for that.
Yeah, I've done
Um,
that before.
Yeah, it's
Time-consuming.
better to, if you're working on a project, to have all of your elements set up beforehand,
Right.
and then bring them into Flash, and then basically assemble them and animate them in Flash. But you want to create them in Illustrator or Photoshop or whatever.
Okay.
So,
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to get with you, Mike, on that, because one day I attempted to, like I already had